Hello everyone and welcome to On Purpose Astrology, and today I'm going to be talking about the chart for the Capricorn solstice, the December solstice, the chart for when the sun moves into the cardinal sign of Capricorn. And this solstice chart, along with the other solstice chart, there's two a year and there's two equinox charts as well for the year. These charts are good predictors, are used by astrologers as predictors for the 3 months ahead. So as I talk through the themes in this chart, I want you to think about these are themes for the next 3 months. And we can see as we think about these themes, we can follow them, how these themes play out in our lives and in the world at large. So let me share the screen here. And I've called this video Love is the Answer. The reason is there's lots of hope in this chart. At first glance, there might be some difficult aspects. There are some challenging aspects in this chart, but there's lots of hope. Isn't this December period a time when we celebrate love, peace, and hope for the future? And this is what I hope can come through in this chart. So let's have a look at the chart. As I said, it's when the sun goes into the cardinal sign of Capricorn. The cardinal signs are the signs that are more go-getting. They have lots of energy. So there's lots of energy in this chart. They want to get things moving. They want to start things. So again, this is a good time to start thinking about the next 3 months, particularly as for many of us, we're going into a period when we will have time to reflect. Many of us will be taking some time off work and we'll have time to reflect and think about what we want to do in the new year. So this next 3 months, here are some of the major themes. Now, the 0 degrees of all the cardinal signs, so Capricorn, Cancer, Libra, and Aries, when a planet, particularly the sun, goes into the 0 degrees, it's the cardinal axis. It's known as the world axis or the Aries point. It's called generally the Aries point, although even the sun in 0 Capricorn can be known as the Aries point. It's a bit confusing, I know. But what does it mean? That's the most important thing. Generally, it's where the personal becomes public. So over the next 3 months, maybe it's time to reflect generally on where are you being affected by larger themes in the world? Either how are you feeling about what's happening in the news? Is there some fear about the future? Certainly, it feels like we are in unstable times. And the reason I wanted to call this video Love is the Answer, because really, when you think about all the emotions that we go through, they really boil down to either love or fear. And I think we have a choice here as individuals, but also as humanity. Do we want to step into love and compassion? How can we do that? And maybe this chart will have a few suggestions that might just help you on the way. Enhance visibility, so we can see when with the sun at this cardinal point, at this on this cardinal axis, we can see more visibility. We can see what's going on more because it might affect our lives. If it affects our lives directly, it might be sort of economics or something like that that affects our lives directly, for example. But it's known as a point of recognition. Now, astrologers, when they say recognition for this cardinal axis, this world axis, they tend to mean that if you have this point in your chart, anything at 0 degrees of the cardinals in your birth chart, that you will be recognized some way. But I'll look at it slightly different. It's about having that recognition yourself, having that recognition of how things are unfolding and how things are affecting you. So those are a few lots of background themes really for this solstice chart. We can see that the sun, what is the sun doing in this chart? Well, it's making a cardinal T-square with the nodal axis. So if you look down to house 2, you can see At 2 degrees of Aries, the North Node, which is opposite 2 degrees of Libra, the South Node. Now, the nodes are always in opposition to each other. They travel together. They're not planets, they're points. And the Sun is in a T-square. A T-square is a dynamic aspect. It kind of invites us. It brings situations in our life that invite us to take action, really. The nodes will be moving very soon. They'll be moving very soon into Pisces and Virgo. So over the last 18 months, we can maybe reflect at this time on what we have achieved during the last 18 months when the North Node has been Aries and the South Node is in Libra. Now, the North Node is where we're kind of aiming towards, where we are growing towards. It's a growth point. So in Aries, it's about standing in our own authority, standing in our own sovereignty, and being honest to ourselves. Whereas the South Node in Libra is about yielding and compromise, and it's invited us to let go, let's go of some of the more negative aspects of the sign of Libra. All the signs have a positive and negative and everywhere in between. It's a spectrum. So we may have a little bit of final work to do during this next 3 months of this, when this chart for the Capricorn solstice is relevant. Finally letting go of being over yielding, over compromising, not being able to say no and people pleasing, to stand more in our own power and our own sovereignty. It's also a time to reflect upon the importance of the connections we have with others and our relationship to the world in general. I've already mentioned that for some, it's been a difficult year. I've already mentioned that the world does feel a little bit unstable, a little bit difficult. There's wars and violence and that kind of thing going on. What is our relationship? Now we've got Neptune involved as well. If you look down to house 2, the little blue trident, you can see Neptune is very close in an out of sign actually, but it's in a conjunction to the North Node. So that can bring disillusionment. Where are we disillusioned? Where do we feel a little bit let down? But it's also a time when we have compassion. Self-love and self-compassion comes first. It's the North Node in Aries after all. When we have self-love and self-compassion for ourselves, then we can more easily have self-love and self-compassion for others and for the world, but still standing strong in our own sovereignty, not giving away, not surrendering, not putting ourselves into positions where we are rescuing others. We need to look after ourselves. We can help and we can love and we can heal ourselves and others, but we can really only help others once we've learned to love and heal ourselves. It's also a time, I think, as I say, a lot of us are going to be hunkering down for the holiday season, which means spending time with family. And often that can be a difficult time because we become aware of old patterns of wanting to please others, of wanting to give in to others and wanting to sort of surrender to what other people want. So perhaps time to, with great love and compassion in your heart, as much love and compassion in your heart as you can find, to think about, well, where can I let go of some of these old patterns of connecting with family members or others in maybe unhealthy ways, and what are the beliefs behind those old patterns? It's, of course, a time when we do need to get on with people as well. It's a time when we want harmony, and we can really bring that harmony to any situation if we are willing. And I think this is really a message for this chart. Where can we bring love and harmony? Now, this brings us to one of the most challenging aspects in this chart, which is the opposition between the Mars in Leo, you can see it here in the 7th house, and Pluto in Aquarius. Pluto's pretty new in Aquarius. It's been dipping back and forth for the last year or so, but it's now settled in Aquarius for the long run for the next 20 or so years. And it's making the first major thing that it's been doing is making an opposition with Mars during a Mars retrograde, which means that it's a longer lasting opposition. It's a longer lasting aspect that invites us to do the work that is suggested by this aspect. Now, Mars Pluto is associated with anger, with buried rage, with holding grudges. It's in the fixed signs. So you might feel anger bubbling up. You might feel grudges coming up. And there's a choice here, choice to let go. There's also a choice to stand in your own power as well, not letting yourself be the so-called victim of other people's drama, other people's rage. Very much about drama, Mars in Leo. Think about where you might be creating drama or allowing drama in your own life. I've had a situation recently where I was confronted with someone's rage, someone's terrible rage, some messages that were full of rage and anger. And it's incredibly upsetting. But I knew I had to stand in my own power and set my boundaries that, no, that's not acceptable to me. But I had to step back, take a pause for a couple of days before I was able to respond. So it's about not being reactive. You don't want drama in your life. Some people thrive on drama, but it keeps the cycle going. If you express your anger at someone and they express it back or vice versa, that keeps that drama going on, doesn't it? Keeps that drama going on. So it's about standing in, we've already talked about the Aries North Node and standing in your own power and your own sovereignty. And this is the time really to think about where can I stand in my own power, but from a place of calm and stillness. And if you don't engage or create the drama, then it's a lot easier to distill it. For me, as I say, I took a pause, I took a break, and then I responded. I responded by saying that this was unacceptable, that it wouldn't be tolerated again, that there is love there for this other person, and that I love them, and I was sympathetic to their feelings because their feelings are important. But I set that strong boundary. There, you'll have your own ways of dealing with things. If they do come up for you, if these dramas do come up for you this time of year, and as I said, over the next 3 months, where have we got? Where is the love? Where have we got in this chart the opportunity to really bring love and compassion into things? So here also I've talked about, fear with this Mars and Pluto. Fear, but also where can we bring the love? Where can we really feel that compassion, but still stay strong, stay still in our own power? The most positive use of our own power, of course. So there's some good aspects in this chart, and I'm going to talk about these ones now. So looking back at that Mars is in a trine to Mercury. Mercury in the 10th house here. It's still in Sagittarius, as many of you know. Mercury has recently been retrograde and now it's going forwards again, which is great, which is good. The energy, the communication energy is starting to flow again, a little bit more quickly. So you've got Mars trine Mercury in this chart. You've also got Mars trine Neptune as well. It's an outer sign trine, a little bit wide, but we're going to take it. So there's a creative energy here. Mercury, Mars is a friendliness. It's the opportunity to open up positive communication channels. I've just given you an example of that. How I managed a situation where somebody vented their rage at me, and I opened a clear communication channel while, as I said, I was sympathetic to how they were feeling, but also very clear and honest about that this wasn't acceptable, the way that it was communicated. Even gave them a suggestion as to here is perhaps a better way to have communicated the feeling or what you were asking for. This Mercury trine Mars is very good for is very good for toning down any anger. It's about heartfelt words. Mars in Leo, heartfelt, Mercury, words, heartfelt words. Where can you communicate in a heartfelt way? Honestly, with honesty. Mercury in Sagittarius is about honesty and integrity and ethics, but also in an optimistic way, in a way that's compassionate and sympathetic to others. This is where this trine with Neptune comes in. Where can you lend an ear to someone who needs to be heard and needs to be seen? Where do you need to be heard and seen? Remember that words given with compassion and honesty, but not brutal, blunt honesty, but with kind, compassionate energy, words can be very healing. There's also a natural charm as well associated with Mars, Neptune, and Mercury. You know, charm with the words, but make sure that charm is real. That flattery isn't just to get something that you want. Be honest. And there's also the potential for a lot for dignity and poise. So remember dignity and poise. Be dignified. That's really important to Leo. It's also important to Capricorn. Dignity and pause. Capricorn is, of course, one of the more reserved signs. So take a step back, and then, if you need to, and then how can you communicate with dignity and poise, or carry yourself with dignity and poise? So here is the real opportunity here to do a lot of healing on yourself and in relationships and with others during this time. We've also got the two benefics. That means the two, in traditional astrology, the two benefics are the two nice planets, which is Venus is in a trine. Again, a trine aspect is a nice, easy aspect. It's a flowing aspect. A trine between Venus and Jupiter. Before I've talked about the Mercury trine Mars, Mars trine Neptune. With trines, you actually have to work with them. It's easy just to let them go, oh yeah, okay, and let it flow, blah, 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 blah. But there's an opportunity to learn. You have to do, whereas I talked about a T-square. T-square kind of almost pushes you into action, whereas it's easier to sort of sit back and not do much about it with a trine. So you have to work at it, but the opportunities are there and it's worth it. So Venus trine Jupiter. This again talks about inner poise, about optimism, about cheerfulness, about generosity of spirit. But also with Jupiter, it speaks about being ethical in the way you deal with others and in life situations generally. It's about harmony as well. Venus is all about harmony and emotional honesty. It's in the air signs. It's in the air signs, but it's about communication again. Jupiter is in Gemini. It's about communication again, but it's also in the air signs. And the air signs, particularly this Venus here in Aquarius, we can see in the first house. It brings us back to that love. Venus is the planet of love. Venus in Aquarius is about love for humanity as a whole. It's a wider, broader love and for the planet. So here is another opportunity to bring love into situations, to bring love and compassion for humanity, for yourself, for your community, for everyone really. Now, the final aspect I'm going to talk about, just talked about Jupiter. They're in the fifth house. And in the second house, I've just put an arrow on Saturn as well. Jupiter is square Saturn in this chart. And it's a long running square between Jupiter and Saturn. There was one in April 2024. And this second square between Jupiter and Saturn is going to be exact on the 24th of December. So just 3 days after this ingress chart. And then the last one will be on 15th of June 2025, by which point Jupiter will have moved on, and then Saturn will have moved on. So it will be in Aries and Cancer in the cardinal signs. But for now, we're looking at a square between Jupiter in Gemini and Saturn in Pisces. Now, this square, this second square of this series of squares, represents the first major aspect since the December 2020, around about exactly this time of year. I think it was the 21st, actually, when Jupiter and Saturn had their conjunction at 0 of Aquarius. So it's a time to reflect on how, over the last 4 years, have your plans gone? Did you make any plans? How have things been working out for you? Where is it time to make a change? Time for flexibility, time to be adaptable. It might feel like things are moving too fast or changing too quickly, so it asks for adaptability and flexibility. Jupiter Saturn is associated with our sense of purpose. So where is our purpose changing? Where has it evolved? It's also, which is associated with purpose, it's associated with ideas and possibilities and potentialities, which is the Jupiter part of it, and how they are manifested in the real world, how they are produced, which is Saturn. So how have all your ideas, what new ideas are coming in? What ideas did you have that you might need to tweak or change for the next 3 months as we're going to the new year, into 2025? How might they manifest into this real world? Jupiter's full of ideas, big ideas, where Saturn sometimes feels like it can block those ideas. So where might you be thinking about blocks you need to move through? Things haven't manifested in this last year, perhaps the way you thought they might have done or how you might have wanted them to. But there's a choice here, and we always have a choice here. Nothing is fixed. This is immutable. It's not fixed. So we have time to make changes between now and sort of the middle of next year. So it's time to think about, really, in the next 3 months, really, where do you need to make changes in terms of your plans, your life plans for the future? Jupiter's a very future-oriented sign, of course. And the bigger picture here, really, with Jupiter and Saturn is they've moved into a new mutation cycle. I talked about this in other videos. You can look at some of the other videos, the Jupiter-Saturn great mutation cycle. But basically, in 2020 was the start of a brand new, over 200-year cycle for the Jupiter and Saturn. So we're fastly moving into new paradigms around the world, a new way of doing things. And again, we have that choice point. If we can remain flexible, if we can remember to feel the love, if we can remember that there are only really 2 foundations of everything that we feel, which is love and which is fear. So anger comes from fear. Other negative emotions, they all seem to come from fear, whereas we can decide to, at this time of the year, any time of the year, any hour of the day, we can decide to move as much as possible into our heart and feel our emotions through a place of love. And from love, we get joy, we get peace, we get acceptance. So I wish you everything good for this holiday season and for the next few months to come. This is probably going to be my last video before the holiday season starts, and I hope it's been interesting and helpful. And as always, I love you lots, and thank you so much for your continuing support over these last few months. Bye-bye.